Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of the Arsenal Transfer Show, joining you after the close of the 2022 summer transfer window. We've made it to the end. This will be the final transfer morning show. What will happen is tomorrow we'll resume's probably a better word, the Arsenal News Show, which is the show that we do when the transfer window isn't on. So don't worry if you become a really kind of keen listener of our 8 a.m. shows and you enjoy these series. Don't worry, the 8 a.m. show is not going anywhere, at least until I go on my honeymoon. Then it will go kind of somewhere, but then it will be back again after I return. But yeah, the show's not going anywhere. But thank you so much, everybody that's joined us over the course of the transfer window. I hope you've enjoyed the content that we've produced. And yeah, it's been a commitment. It's been a long, arduous summer, but we now find ourselves fully focused on what Arsenal can do between now and the kickoff of the World Cup. Good morning, everybody joining us in the chat box. I see that StreamYard still is deleting comments for some strange reason at the start of our shows. But Jose, good morning to you. To Manu, to Akshat, to Marcus, good morning. Martin, good morning to Mo and to Lieb. In the chat box joining us first was Azarul and Olu and Rich Kanu and Matt G. Good morning to all of you. Hope you guys are good. Hope you guys are well. If you haven't already dropped a like on the video, please do. And also get involved in our latest competition, courtesy of Football Prizes. You can win a ticket to the Arsenal against PSV Eindhoven game in the Europa League, plus plenty of extra prizes as well, including the likes of a signed Alexander Zinchenko shirt, a signed Tony Adams shirt, and plenty more too. Link in the description to get some more information on that. Tonight is our live show. Tickets are still available if you would like to come along this evening at the Ridley Road Social Club in North London. Starts at around 7-ish. I think it's just after that. So if you are free this evening, you want to come along to our live show, James Bench, Harry Simew, FK, Sophie Nicolau, and Mike from the Gooners Pod, who is hosting, are doing a big event in support of Gooners v Kansas. So come along and get involved. And lastly, voting does close on Sunday, I'm led to believe, at midnight. So if you haven't yet voted for us in the Football Content Awards, please do get involved. That's when nomination votes close. So get involved, drop us a vote if you could be so kind. So not the usual slideshow that you would usually have this morning, of course. They will return. Don't worry, I'm going to break news down every day. But I thought this morning is going to be a little different. It's kind of going to be a little bit more of a discussion-based thing with you guys in the chat box and kind of going through a lot more of your comments, and we'll see kind of where the show takes us. For me, look, yesterday was very disappointing. I wanted to see Arsenal go out and bring in a central midfielder. I would have loved to see Arsenal go out and bring in a competitor to Bukayo Saka. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted Arsenal to go out and do, especially considering the injuries we've got with Mohamed El Neni and Thomas Partey and Alexander Zinchenko all currently out. I wanted to see us do it. We tried. Arsenal really did try to go to Aston Villa and bid for Douglas Luiz, a player that had a year left on his contract, and we went up to as high as £25 million, which for me is a very fair price with all the context of the situation to try and get that deal done. Clearly, Aston Villa were not interested in selling the player for whatever reason. That might come back to bite them in the end. We'll have to wait and see. But clearly, we weren't willing to go any higher than that. We weren't willing to go as high as some people suggested. Even 40 million is what Aston Villa ultimately wanted for a player that absolutely will be going on a free in less than a year's time. Now, it's my understanding that there was no intention from Arsenal to sign a central midfielder this end of the transfer window. A report, I believe, is now out about that this morning over on football.london right now. But there was no intention from Arsenal, to my knowledge, that they would be going out and signing a midfielder. Or potentially even any signing for that matter. There were links to wide players. As we know, if Pedro Neto was gettable, if the club were able to convince Wolves to sell him for a reasonable figure, they probably would have gone and done that. However, Wolves were unwilling to budge on their valuation of the player. And despite links to the likes of Yeremy Pino and Nikolai Mudryk and players like this, Arsenal never moved for a wide player either. And so what this means is that Arsenal find themselves with a significant number of games to go until the January transfer window, probably short in a couple of areas that we may have been better off signing it. How do I rate the window? I don't go any lower than a 7.5, that kind of figure. And I have been very disappointed, I'll be honest. And yes, I know you guys told me that when I did my phone-in show and we talked a lot about social media, that I shouldn't be looking at Twitter. I shouldn't be looking at social media because all it's going to do is annoy me. I know that's what you told me to do, but I can't help it. I can't help but sometimes look at it. And the amount of criticism, the amount of people rating this window a 6 or below, I just find quite staggering, to be honest. The reason why I find it quite staggering is because for me, this has been one of our best transfer windows in the modern era of Arsenal. I look back over transfer windows and go, contextually, of where the squad was at the beginning of the window and where it is now, I'm struggling to think of a better window. You know, last summer we spent more money than we've ever spent before. We rebalanced the team. We brought in White and Lokonga and Tavares and Ødegaard and Tomiyasu and Ramsdale. You know, these are really important signings, but they were absolutely necessary signings that we needed to make. You know, Tomiyasu came in, improved the right back position. Ødegaard has been great. Ramsdale improved us in the goalkeeping position in terms of distribution, a lot more tactical fit than what we had. You know, Lokonga and Tavares added depth, but at the same time, you know, the jury's still out for sure on those players. And Ben White, as we all know, has helped us progress that centre-back area. But for me, you know, I thought last summer, I still think this summer has been more important for the team's kind of progression. This summer, based upon what we had at the start of the window, bringing in Zinchenko, bringing in Gabriel Jesus, most importantly, and of course adding Fabio Vieira, Turner and Marquinhos, who we are yet still to see, of course, what they will end up bringing, is important. And you go back over kind of the transfer windows before that. You know, you go back to 2020 when we brought in Partey, Gabriel, Marie. Marie came in January, didn't he? But Willian, you know, Partey and Gabriel, great signings. But just the two, when we needed to add more, wasn't enough. You go back to 2019, Pepe, Saliba, Tierney, David Luiz, Gabriel Martinelli, Dani Ceballos on loan. You know, these weren't players. Saliba went on loan. Kieran Tierney was the only one that really progressed us. And Nicolas Pepe ended up being probably the biggest flop of Arsenal's history because of the amount of money we invested in him. That's not a slight on the player's ability. It's just not worked out. But £72 million on a player that's now left on loan to Nice just 3 years later, it doesn't look good. So you go back to 2018, Torreira, Leno, Socrates, Guendouzi, Lichtsteiner. And then Denis Suarez on loan in January. The year before that, Lacazette, and that was kind of it. Kolasinac came in on a free, but Lacazette, and then we signed Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan in January. 16-17, wow, we spent 100 million on Xhaka, Mustafi, Perez, Asano, Holding. Yeah, need I say more? 2015-16, we signed Petr Cech. 2014-15, Alexis Sanchez, brilliant signing. But then Callum Chambers, Daniel Welbeck, Gabriel, Mathieu Debuchy, you know, not players that progressed us at all. Only Sanchez progressed us. And then the year before that in 2013 was Ozil. It was the summer of Ozil. Before that, you know, to be honest, the summer that I like one of the most was 2012. Santi Cazorla, Lucas Podolski, Olivier Giroud. You know, Giroud scored over 100 goals for us. Santi Cazorla is a modern legend, in my opinion. And Podolski had a little bit of depth to the forward line. But you're starting to go back so far. This summer represented change for Arsenal. This summer represented Arsenal going out and adding 2 world-class starters to the team, adding a really exciting young player in Fabio Vieira, and adding a bit of depth in Marquinhos and Turner. And who knows what happened with Marquinhos? If the same thing that happened with Martinelli happens, then we're buzzing. But there's no guarantees of that right yet, and we're going to have to wait until we can make a judgment on that. But once again, I think the reason why we're kind of, and a lot of people are frustrated, is because we ended the window with a bit of disappointment with not adding a central midfielder. Now, if Partey and Elneny were fit right at this very moment with no injury issues right now, obviously I think the view of the team would be very different. But because they are injured, that has a very big psychological impact on how we're viewing the team. Regarding kind of the right wing position, I think people are forgetting Fabio Vieira very, very quickly. I've seen so many people acting as if Saka is our only option now on the right-hand side, which isn't true. Fabio Vieira has played a significant number of minutes. In fact, I was checking it this morning. He's played 1,744 minutes exclusively on the right-hand side as a 22-year-old. So he's got plenty of experience playing on that right-hand side. Marquinhos is, to my understanding, really impressing the coaching staff in training with the senior side, and in the youth team has been very impressive as well. So who knows what we'll expect to see from him in the Europa League games. And I also think that there's kind of a kind of an overlook going on that the January window exists. I know that our record with the January window is not amazing, especially in 2022. Earlier this year, we had a really kind of difficult time in January where all the focus was kind of drawn into the Aubameyang saga. So for me, I think that with that all said and done, there is time for Arsenal to do those deals if they need to in January. And we have a squad that is very capable of keeping us very, very competitive through until at least the World Cup. And if we need to do more business in January, we can do more business in January. There's this idea that Saka could be burnt out. He doesn't need to be burnt out. He can play 1, potentially 2 games a week. He doesn't need to start the Europa League games. We have a group, in my opinion, that is very, very comfortable. Zurich, Bodo Glimt, and PSV. PSV are a good team, of course. We'll come up against Cody Gakpo, which could be an interesting one. They'll be the biggest challenge that we have. Potentially, Saka needs to start in one of those games. We'll have to see where we're at. But I still think we've got more than enough to compete with the likes of Zurich and Bodo Glimt. And I'm not taking it for granted. I know that Bodo Glimt had a very good result against Roma last year in their competition. But we should have enough to beat these teams without a shadow of a doubt, without any too much problem. And we shouldn't be relying on Saka to start every one of those games. So for me, I am happy in terms of what we've done. That said, it still can be classed as a failure. That's the kind of contradiction for me, is that even though I'm happy with the business that we did, it's still a bit of a failure. The reason why I call it a failure, and the analogy that I use, is if you set out to build a house, and yet despite getting brilliant furniture, solid foundations, great infrastructure, if you put no window panes in, you're still going to be shivering this winter, and I think that's kind of where Arsenal are at right now, is that we've brought in some brilliant stuff, but we are still going to be potentially shivering come winter if we don't add the necessary players, or if we face a strut of kind of really bad luck. So there you go. Scott, I'd love to know. See, the comments like this really make me laugh when it's just like, nonsense, Tom. No context, no explanation, no reason. I don't even know what you mean. Like, I don't know what you're disagreeing with. Nonsense comes from a lack of clarity, which I'm lacking in your comment. Joshua, thank you so much for the donation. Tom, for the last 4 windows, I and many believed we needed to strengthen the centre midfielder area. Me too. I've said it a long time. We're at least 1 forward down on last season. With extra games and pushing for top 4, we have left ourselves short. The forward position is an interesting one. We have Jesus and Nketiah. You're going to struggle to find teams that have got more than 2 natural strikers anyway. Chelsea, Havertz and Aubameyang. Liverpool, Firmino and Nunez, and of course Manchester City, Haaland and Alvarez. Technically even just Haaland if you count Alvarez as an out-and-out striker. So we have wide forwards, we have Martinelli, we have Vieira. Both of them can cover as a false 9, or especially as a striker, as Martinelli can, should we need them to. So I don't think contextually, when you look at our rivals, we are comparatively short at centre forward. Centre midfield, we have faced a ridiculous spate of bad luck with Partey and Elneny and Zinchenko, all of which can play in that deep central midfield role, all of them getting injured in the first 4 games. That's unprecedented. That's ridiculous. So I have sympathy. It's not like we just have Partey, or we just have Elneny, or we just have Xhaka. We have a lot of deep central midfield options, 5 of them, in fact, with Lokonga, Partey, Xhaka, Elneny, and who am I forgetting? Lokonga. Have I said that? Lokonga, Elneny, Partey, Xhaka, Zinchenko. 5. There you go. So, I think we leaving ourselves short is a little harsh, considering the fact that, we have depth there. It's just bad luck that's cost us with those injuries thus far. And we're still top of the league, and Lokonga played in that game against Aston Villa and did really, really well. There was another super chat that I think I may have missed. I'm trying to find it, but I'm struggling. I can't find it for some reason. I will try and endeavour to scroll up whilst I'm talking. And this is the thing. Matt says failure seems harsh. And this is where I can't win. This is where I find myself unable to win with people. Because I personally agree with those that think that we needed to do more. Because I think that's a fair position to have on the window. And I agree with those also that think we've had a good window. Because you look at the windows of the past and you look at the players that we've brought in this summer, And we have had a good window. You listen to Deadline Day, as I was doing on Sky Sports. People are talking about Arsenal having one of the best windows in the league. It's not about numbers. It's not about how much you spend. It's not about how many you bring in. It's about what you bring in. That's what matters. I mean, I saw a comment yesterday on my stream on the Arsenal way that said Nottingham Forest have more ambition than Arsenal. I'm going to say that for you again. Genuinely a comment I saw yesterday. Nottingham Forest have more ambition than Arsenal because they've added 20 million players to their team. That's not ambition. That's desperation. That's what that is. That's desperation to stay in the Premier League. If you're adding 23 players or whatever to your team, that's not ambition, bro. I've never said bro before in my life. This is where this transfer window has taken me. That is not ambition at all. That is desperation. That is scattergun. That is without planning, and I respect the business that Arsenal have done. And I respect that Arsenal only want to bring in quality and they only want to bring in players that are going to push the needle. But at the same time, I have sympathy for those that feel that we didn't do enough, because I agree. And that's why I think that when we know that we needed a centre mid, which I still think we needed, because I would have, looked to bring in a Milinkovic-Savic if we'd had the money, or someone of that ilk. Because we didn't, I view it still as a slight failure that we didn't bring in that player and we didn't bring in the wide forward that I wanted to see us bring in. And again, the word failure comes across really, really strong. But like I said before, if you go out to build a house, if your objective is to build a house and you're getting some really good furniture and you buy a great kitchen and all the foundations are there, but you don't buy the window panes, you're still going to be shivering. And I would not call that house complete. Therefore, you set out to build a house, you failed, you didn't do it. But you've done a really good job in getting as far as you did, but you didn't quite get to that success level that I'd hoped that we would. That's the catch-22. That's the confliction for me. And that's why I don't think I fall into either camp. And that's why I think people on both sides of the fence are annoyed at my kind of opinion of the window. It's because I don't necessarily fall, comfortably into either side. I really love the stuff we've done, but I am critical of what we didn't do. And that's kind of where I'm at. That's why I am where I am. I would challenge anyone to come and tell me, though, why this window's a 6 out or lower. I would really challenge someone to come on. Feel free. I'll even put the link into the description of today's video, if you like, of someone to come on and challenge me on this and tell me why I'm wrong, because I don't know where Arsenal could have really gone regarding kind of what they could have brought in for the money that clearly was available this summer. We had £25 million, it seems, to bring in another player this summer. That's why we bid that much for Luiz. But I don't really know who else you're getting. People say Tielemans, but he doesn't cover in El Neni's role. I don't really buy the Tielemans argument. I mean, there's another reason. Why has no one gone for him? Why has no one gone for Tielemans? Why has no one signed him? There must be a reason. One of the reasons could be he's been bad. He's been really bad for however long. By the way, if you do want to join and you want to refresh your stream, the link to that is in the description. I'm happy to be challenged on this. I'm going to be around for the next half an hour or so. I am happy to be challenged on my view on the window. But I'm so far really waiting to try and find someone that can. And I can see a lot of people are disagreeing with me in the chat box. If you do disagree with me, come on. Don't jump on and agree with me, because that's boring. I respect your opinions and I love people that tell me I'm right. Don't get me wrong. But don't jump on if you're coming on just to agree with me. If you don't agree with me, come on. Because that's what I'm trying to find in people, is people that disagree with what I'm saying. Because I've had a lot of people disagree with me on social media. But as soon as I say, come on and have a conversation about it, it's not there. It's not. I don't find it. I don't know why it struggles so much with people coming on the show and trying to put across an argument that goes against what I've said, but it doesn't happen. So the link's there. Refresh your thing in the description. Come tell me I'm wrong and tell me why. Let's get some more comments from the chat box. We have a super chat come in from Matt, who says, I feel bad. I made you feel like you can't win. Sorry, mate. Big fan of the show. Look, don't apologize for having an opinion, Matt. If your opinion's different to mine, that's fine. I don't want you to apologize for having a different point of view. I'd never want that. I want to encourage people to have differing points of view. This would be well boring if we didn't have different points of view. But what I like is when people can articulate and explain to me why I'm wrong about something. Olu says failure is harsh. We was never planning. Midfield was never a planned signing. Let's talk about it. Let's bring King into the conversation. How you doing, King? You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Good morning. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. I'm disappointed, about the way the window ended, of course. Am I harsh calling it a failure?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I actually gave it a 6. I had a laugh when I saw your
Yeah.
comment on
Why is
Twitter.
it a 6 for you?
So my reasoning, first of all, I do rate the players we brought in. I think I told you on the show that I think we've improved our starting 11 with 33%, which is huge. I feel like if you need to improve it more, then you failed before. Like so, in terms of Chelsea, for example, they bought a lot of players because they failed with keeping the players they needed to keep, for example. But for me, where I'm a bit disappointed is in the fact that I feel like in our attack we are short in bodies in terms of we got Jesus and Eddie as centre forwards, and then we don't really have we have Martinelli, Saka, and Smith Rowe. For me, right now, I can't make a lot of judgments on Marquinhos because I've never seen him play
Yeah, of course.
for Arsenal. So for me, I said that if Marquinhos turns out to be good enough cover for Saka, then it's a 7. But if it turns out to not be ready yet, then it's a 6 because I do feel like we've needed a competitive right winger ever since William left because Pepe have failed to really cover for Saka. And that is the reason why Saka's played so many minutes at his young age. I also a report that he's played like something like 2,000 more minutes when he reached his first 100 Premier League games in comparison to Phil Foden.
Yeah.
And that's taking out all the minutes he's played for England. So I do think that it would be good for him to have someone who's competing with him. And obviously, it's hard to get that winger, but it's not impossible. But for me, in centre mid, I don't know if you agree, but we have a good relationship with Marseille. Camara left on a free to Aston Villa. I think he could have been a cheap option where if it turns out in a year or two that we've reached a level where he's not good enough, you can sell him for a profit because you got him on a free. He's still good enough and he has a good enough reputation where you wouldn't lose out. And if it turns out that he's a gem, you keep him. And it's not a big risk to take him, I think. I felt like
The thing with Camara for me is that he's on £150,000 a week, and like if you bring him in on a free, which I think is a fair suggestion, if you say if it doesn't work out, you're then stuck with a player like we were with Pepe on £150,000 per week on probably a 4 or 5 year contract. He's been very good for Villa, to be honest, this season. I think he's probably been their best player so far. The irony is. But obviously, that Villa did that right at the beginning of the window when Arsenal's focus was on bringing in a striker, on bringing in Fabio Vieira, and on bringing in Zinchenko. And I think a lot of the deals that we missed out on, or the complaints that we missed out on certain players at the start of the window, were because we were focused on getting Jesus and Vieira and Zinchenko. The issue for me is kind of the players that were available in August. When we were actually able to do more business. That's for me is where I don't necessarily think the options were out there, and I think the £150,000 per week for Camara is a lot of money to risk on a player that doesn't necessarily start for us right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear that. But do you think it's 150 because it's Villa, or do you think if Arsenal came in for him because of the stature of our club and the way we're moving and the potential to play in Europe, he would have lowered his wages request?
Maybe.
I mean, it's impossible to know.
Yeah, of course. I understand where the theory comes from. I just think if Arsenal are going to turn around and say, look, you can come to Arsenal and play on what, 80k? I mean, I heard a rumor that Fabio Vieira is on something like 30k a week. There's the rumor I heard that he's on about something really small when we did really well to get one kind of that low wage. So it's clear that we weren't looking to put big players on that kind of, especially I say big players. Camara, was a free transfer, still young. It's a lot of money. So we don't know is the honest answer. For me, like the attacking options, we have Jesus and Nketiah, Saka, Fabio Vieira, Gabriel Martinelli, Smith Rowe. Nelson is still here, which I know people won't like me saying, but he is still here. And Marquinhos as well. That is a lot of forward options. I would like to have seen a wide option come in. And especially in midfield, I would have liked to seen us go out and kind of, added that extra player. But I don't know why those two players would have taken it from a 6 to like a 9 or a 10. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, but that's probably what I said. If we have gotten 2 more players, I would probably give it an 8.5, or maybe even a 9.
So what would it have
depending
had
on
to be a 10 out of 10 window?
I don't really give 10 out of 10 unless it is like a Bellingham.
Yeah, you're like me.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I know. Yeah.
because if we were to get a Bellingham, that's where you'd be like, oh, this is 10 out of
Mm.
10 player, because now we bought like a world class kind of center midfielder or potential to be world class. It would have to be someone in that, like a Haaland, like a Bellingham, someone, Kylian Mbappe. I'm not saying we're getting these players, guys, but for me, that is where I give it a 10 out of 10 when we do something unbelievable. I do feel like Gabriel Jesus is under that bracket where he's a top class player that can turn into a world class. A bit like when we bought Alexis Sanchez, I think he was top class, where the Neymars and Messi were world class. Then I felt like he took his game to the world class level, and I can see we get that with Jesus, and that's why, for me, the best way to rate a window is in the summer, because it's in May, where we know where we've finished, because that's really when you can make a full assessment and say, well, Jesus have had this impact, like a bit like last season where we fell a bit short. So if we maybe would have signed one more player in January, we maybe would have gotten top 4, and
Maybe
that would have given that window a higher rating than, I think I gave it a 7 last year.
so. This window's been worse than last window.
But I really rate the window we had last season.
Yeah, but you said it's a 6, and last one was a 7. So I mean,
yeah. But I think if you look at, we spent like 19 million, I think, on Tomiyasu, right?
19. I think it was about 19.
Yeah, and we got.
Sorry, I thought you said 90. I was like, what?
No, 19. Our club captain, we bought him for 30 million from Real Madrid. Martin Odegaard.
Yeah.
That's another fantastic signing for that price. Then obviously we spent 50 million on Ben White. But Chelsea spent like 90 million on Fofana. So it's like, again, if you take that into context, it's a cheap signing. So I think we bought Ramsdale very cheap again. If you look at where the goalkeepers have been going for now, it's a cheap signing.
Yeah. Look, I think when you talk about kind of windows assessment, you look at last window and you say we brought in 6 players and we brought in 6 very decent players, and Tavares looks like he's going off and being a very good player for Marseille. Could come back and sell for 3-4 times what we bought him for. Lukonga showed in yesterday's in the game 2 days ago against Aston Villa that clearly there's a quality player in there there's definite potential, but the context of windows is also the squad that you start with. We've started this summer with the squad of those 6 players within it, and we've added on top of that Jesus, Zinchenko, Vieira, Marquinhos, Turner to that team. Whereas the squad last summer, we added those 6 players to that squad. So that's why I can't rate this window as anything lower than a 7, because you contextually look at where the squad was at the beginning of the window. You add the players that we've added with this window to it, and we've got a squad that, in my opinion, should comfortably be qualifying for the Champions League. And if we don't, there's only one place I'm going to be pointing the finger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but right now, we are short in midfield. But we have known
because of 3 injuries in 4 games.
But if I told you before Partey's injury that he might get injured, you wouldn't be surprised, would you?
No, I wouldn't. But I would be surprised if you told me that we lost him, Zinchenko, and El Neni in the first 4 games.
But Zinchenko, even if you look at his record in Man City, he do miss a few games every season from injury. I think it's only El Neni that for me is the surprise, because he's not really been injury prone during his spell at Arsenal and other clubs. But that's where I feel like we know how important Partey is for us. But we also know that he missed almost half of every game every season, and that is why I felt like we could or we should have added a cover there for him. And I know it's hard, but but then
I'm not going to disagree with you that we should have added
Douglas Luiz. I feel like we went in for him too late, and that's why we didn't get him.
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, the club before El Neni's injury weren't even planning on signing a midfielder. You know, it was the injury to El Neni that changed that for them. Which, to be
And
fair,
I don't
is
understand.
yeah.
Why.
I don't get that. And what I don't get is why Edu, and it must be Edu, feels as though that was right. Because Arteta came out after Bournemouth, you know, before El Neni got injured, and said we need more firepower, said we need more. So it clearly wasn't Arteta. You know, he clearly wanted more. But I don't know why the club hasn't. King, I'm going to have to grab on our next caller. But thank you so much for joining me this morning. Really appreciate your time, brother.
No, thank you for having me on. Good luck.
Have a good one. See you later, mate. I'm just going to read out a couple of super chats before we get our next caller on. Abdullah says, Tom, you and Harry are defenders for this club. It's a weird comment considering I think thumbnail for the video says Arsenal failed in the window. Are you telling me that Edu and Arteta deserve to be at the work after what we just saw? Again, the Arteta thing, how the finger can be pointed at Arteta when he has explicitly come out and said we needed more firepower. We are short. We will try and do something. I don't know. Maybe someone else can tell me. Let's bring in our next caller. Daniel, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Hey, mate. How are you? You good?
Yeah, not bad. Rested. It was a short. I mean, I was up late, but I've had enough sleep that I feel like I can tackle the day. How you doing?
Yeah. No, all good, man. All good. Just reflecting on a tough day yesterday. I had Sky Sports deadline day on since 8 o'clock in the morning. I was watching it very intently, but it's difficult to analyze it. I guess I think the way you did it, I think I sent the chat in like is just the perfect way for me. Is like. Not saying like sitting on the fence exactly, but I'm sort of in the middle where, we've had a great window, but at the same time, it is also incredibly disappointing for me that we couldn't get anything over the line. Not so much that we weren't trying, like you said. I think we definitely were trying probably up until around the last hour, putting in that third bid, but it just didn't feel like enough for me. And especially with the injuries, like I think there was a more desperate need than say if they weren't injured. I think everyone would be reacting differently. So for me, it's just a little bit annoying, just leaving a little bit of a sour taste on the tongue of what has been a really successful window, like you say, in the last, since 2012, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I look back on the windows we've had and go, if you had told me by looking at the squad that we had at the start of June, and we were going to add Gabriel Jesus and Vieira and Zinchenko to that, I've been like, this is exciting. You know, I can't wait to see what this team does. What do you rate the window out of 10 out of interest?
I kind of like 7.5. I'd say no, because it has been a 7.5. Like it's just we've been.
That's why I rated it.
Like Arsenal as a club, we've been so unlucky with injuries. You know, I've supported them my entire life, and it's always been something that's been lingering. Like it is unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game. But I think the way I was looking at this is, I was just thinking now is like we have to try and be as fluid as possible, because if you look at all our players, like you're saying, Vieira can play out on the wing. And then you can also, if you really wanted to, Smith Rowe can also do a job across any of that front three. And I think we have to start looking at it as more of like a, like our players, like as much as they are positionally locked, you can play Xhaka in that deep role. Like Ben White, like you've been saying in the past few weeks, can play in that 6 if need be. So I think we have to start looking at it as more of like a fluid thing, and making sure that, although we didn't sign anyone, we have still got a really good squad. We have still got a squad that has a positive mentality with it. And we have won 5 out of 5 games. We can't ignore that fact. But yeah, for me, it was just I wanted to kind of capitalize on the start we've already had. And I think adding Douglas Luiz or another midfielder could have maybe just pushed us a little bit further. But 7,
I mean, we tried, didn't we? We tried to add Douglas Luiz, sorry. Douglas Jesus. I just think everyone's got Jesus in their name now. We tried to add, a player in Douglas Luiz at the end of the window. The club didn't necessarily want to, but the El Neni injury forced them into a late change, and they weren't, successful. And it seems that there were 3 midfielders that were on the market on deadline day. You had Douglas Luiz, you had Artemelo, and you had Dennis Zakaria. Chelsea grabbed Zakaria on loan. Liverpool grabbed Artur on loan, and we tried to get a permanent deal done for Luiz. Now, of the 3, Luiz is definitely the better option of the 3. Without a shadow, I'm not going to have any argument with people about that, because Artur is, just not good enough. He's injury prone, doesn't solve any issues for us, really. Isn't even a 6 that we kind of need, And Dennis Zakaria has just plummeted in terms of his stock and value since he's left Borussia Mönchengladbach, and has still come off the back of a serious knee injury, which is still having problems with how he's recovered from it. So how Chelsea and Liverpool deal with those 2 additions, I don't know. But they are additions. They have managed to get them both in, and that's the difference. So when you look at what we could have done in the wide area, Do you still think we've left ourselves short, or do you think that the roster of Jesus and Nketiah, Saka, Vieira, Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Nelson, and Marquinhos is enough until at least January?
I'm very optimistic, so I would say yes, because I like it. I like what we've got. I think the 2 cameos that Nketiah's had, I think he's actually been really positive. Although he hasn't bagged sort of goals, but I think that his energy when he's come on, I think has been vital to the team. It's given us something different. And like I was saying just now, I think it just needs to be a really fluid system where we're not saying, right, well, Saka's our only right winger. I think we need to be open to playing Marquinhos out there if need be, or Vieira out there if need be. That's why I say yes. I think on paper probably no, because we probably do need an extra bit of cover at that wide position. However, we just need to be fluid about it and make sure that we are playing players that not necessarily their primary position, but that will still do a job there. So yeah, I think it is enough. I think we've definitely got enough till January. I think our first 5 games have shown us that. I mean, not much has really changed in that attack. We haven't really had injuries, so I think for me it's more like, I know it's a small sample size and there's a long season, and our next few months are looking a bit testing, but I think honestly will be good. I think the only way where it could come back to bite us in the arse is when we have like the Thursday, Sunday games, that turnaround where there are players that are maybe lacking on fitness, and that's where you need maybe a backup or two. But like I said, just keep it fluid and just try and play everyone where possible and where it needs fit.
Absolutely. Let's jump to the chat box in a second. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you jumping on this.
Appreciate it. No worries. Thanks for getting me on, man.
No problem. Pleasure. Thank you to Daniel. I just want to jump into the chat box and say also, if you are going to be jumping on the show, make sure you are over the age of 18, you have a camera and are in a quiet place to record. I do use the supermarket method of, if you don't look over 25, I'm not getting you on. It's as simple as that. Brian says, the next transfer window we need to address centre midfield, right wing and a third attacker. Already talking about the next transfer window, isn't it, man? Big Fat Savlaki says, what I see is that the club does not move only for the right player, but only for the right price. Are we really backed by the owners as much as we thought we are? Well, I mean, this transfer window, we've spent how much? Let's look, 118 million. Last window, we spent 150 million. The window before that, 77 million. The window before that, 144 million. And in 2018, when they took full ownership, we spent 72 million pounds. So counting that up very quickly, that's 450. It's around 550 million quid since 2018. So I'd pretty much say that's being backed. Ojo, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
I'm fine, Tom. I think I jinxed.
You forget my name then for a second. Is that what you did?
Yeah. I've been working for more than 20 years. So
no worries, man. Tell me where your head's at.
No, I think I jinxed our transfer window by joining the stream yesterday. So I try to be positive, and here we are.
Are you positive still, or are you frustrated now?
I'm not frustrated because it is not possible to have all your business done in a window. I think from what we have seen in the first 5 games, me personally, I'm a little more optimistic, and to see that the fan base is back in a meltdown over perceived failures that might happen, because we don't know what is going to happen in the next 2 months. We should not be overreacting so much, at least. And
why are people overreacting in your opinion?
It is PTSD. We have been here before. So we every season for the past 2 decades where we've seen failures in the transfer window, we assume this season for the first time our club acted fast and they moved early in the window, and they got in very, very good players. Even actually at that time we didn't rate Jesus or Zinchenko that much, but now that we have seen their impact in the team, I think we've forgotten actually what the business is that we have done this season. And you see people like Chelsea going for whoever and whatever possible.
Anthony Gordon for 60 million quid, yeah.
Yeah. No, we should have tried to sell Pepe to them, actually. We could have made a lot of money, but it is what it is.
Yeah, look, we now face the situation where obviously Arsenal have a 24-man squad. That's where we are at. I looked at kind of the group of players that we have yesterday, and if you go through it, we have a 24-man squad, which is one short of what you're allowed. So we have factually left ourselves one player short. I feel that for me was probably prior to injuries more so in a wide forward area, to give us kind of more coverage at right hand side and in the middle. But do you feel as though there just wasn't the option? Do you know what I mean? Do you know, I'm really struggling. I have these debates with people. Whilst I wanted us to go and sign a midfielder, I wanted us to go and sign a wide forward. I'm looking at the names that people throw to me, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's good enough. I'm not sure I want to invest in that player, the money that we have, or I'm not sure I want to overspend by 20, 30 million on that player, because I don't know if that's smart. And I don't know if that's going down the old track of what Arsenal did in the past and got them to the 8th place position that they are in. Do you know what I mean?
No, it looks like the club has taken a new direction. So their idea is to trust the manager and do what Pep or Klopp does, where if the manager doesn't believe in the player, irrespective of how dire the squad is, they are never going to go and sign that player over that valuation where the manager believes. The only reason even Liverpool went to get Arthur Melo, of all people, is because their midfield was completely obliterated. They would rather not sign even Arthur Melo. They only got him on loan, right? They never paid the money for him. They only got him on loan.
Yeah, it's an option of
And
like 40 million euros, I think, something like that.
yes, so our basis for panic is look at Partey is going to get injured, and what do we do then? But then you can say that for every other team in the league, what happens if Harry Kane gets injured?
Mm.
Just do Spurs get relegated? What happens if Van Dijk slips in? You can't build 3 4 backups for each player. Should we have got 2 players? Yes, but when the club believes that they were not the right players or they were not the right players at the right value, I think we were a little mugged off by Aston Villa as well, because I think Edu thought they had a good relationship with the club,
Mm.
and
We
and
basically
that
gifted them Chambers and
yes,
Martinez.
yes. Yes, and because he has a good relationship with Kia as well, I think at the last moment they thought worst case scenario we could just you know we could go up to a certain level. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Now this is when you can see whether the manager is up to it. You have a squad now, so even if we get in Douglas Luiz, what if he slips the first game and he gets injured? You can't go back into the window then. So this is when
Yeah.
you see what Arteta is actually made up of. If you have a squad that is struggling and you have multiple games, what do you do then? Can you switch up your systems when your players are not available? Can you still win when you're not at full strength? Right. This is what happened at Invincibles as well. Right. We didn't have the fabled 11 for every game.
Mm.
The
I'm
man.
really struggling. What I'm really struggling with is obviously there's a lot of frustration, and I think maybe in a month's time we'll see where we are in the league, and the animosity around the window is still very fresh, and I think that's probably what's bleeding into some people's opinions. But I'm really struggling with the idea that Edu should be sacked in some people's minds, that Arteta is still being blamed somehow for us not signing players. Where do the misconceptions come from, OJ? Because frankly, pointing the finger at Arteta, the man that all is agreeing with the people that are calling for his head, saying we need more firepower, we need more players, didn't get backed in the end, didn't get the players he wanted. How are people still? I can't fathom it, OJ. I really don't get it. Can you enlighten me in any way?
No, even I'm not the biggest fan of Edu. I
Mm.
always thought we could have gotten a better director of football. I thought there are people like Paul Mitchell or Ralph Ragnick would have done a better job. But looking at what works for Edu is he's in perfect, he's in sync with what the manager wants. And the way the club has projected themselves is whatever target we are going for, it has to be approved by Arteta before the guy can come into the club. And I think that is one of the reasons why the fan base is angry at Arteta, because they think, why can't you just say okay to Tielemans? We could have got him.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
looks like because Arteta did not give the go, club did not go in for Tielemans, so they did not go in for Douglas Luiz earlier. And it's not that they were perfect, because we should have identified the injury issue and gone in at least a week earlier. There no reason to wait till El Neni is on a stretcher to think about a midfielder. But as a fan base, the point is I understand that we are not weak, but we are we are on the ledge. It could break down very easily. But one of the best things that has happened this season is that the fan base has stuck with the team and lifted the team up in difficult situations. And this is one more situation like that. And before going into a game like going to Old Trafford, this is not the atmosphere that should be around the club. We should be pushing the team on, because I've seen how United fans have come out of their holes because they beat Leicester, and they're
One
like,
nil.
yeah, and they're playing horribly, because looking at the team, I'm reminded of how Emery used to went on the 21 or 20 game winning streak, right? Because
Mm.
ultimately they're playing teams that are not testing their defense.
And everyone
Uh,
was fit. Everyone was fit. They didn't have
yeah,
any injuries that season at all, barely. I think they lost a couple of players for like 2 games. It's
yeah.
like,
And just like how we have midweek games, so do all the other teams in the league, right? It's not just us. So even the teams that are not in Europe will have to play midweek games. So the playing field is a little more even than previous times. So
mm.
we'll just have to wait. We have rolled the dice, so we have to see what happens.
OJ, thank you so much for your time, my friends. I'm going to get our next caller on, but I appreciate you jumping on after a long,
Uh,
hard day of work, I'm sure. Thanks for your time, my
yeah,
friend.
sure, I'll try to go get some sleep now. Then
Indeed,
take
do it.
it.
Indeed. Have a
Bye
good
bye.
one, man. Another super chat from Abdullah says, Tom, I included Arteta because he's the manager. That's fine. Look, I understand why you included him, but I still don't get how anyone can point the finger at a man that's turned around publicly and said he wants more firepower and wants more players and then doesn't get them. I don't know how you can call for his head after that. I don't understand it. Isowa, how you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah. How are you, Tom? It's been a dreadful deadline day.
It's been a dreadful deadline day, indeed. Yeah, it was not
Yeah,
the one that we were hoping for. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I just actually woke up a couple of minutes ago, and I saw you streaming. You've really taken to the fact that the phone show really works. I
I
like
like
the
it. I like
yeah.
getting people. It's because mainly I worry that sometimes I get myself into a bit of an echo chamber, to be honest, and I really try and not call people out necessarily, but call for people to challenge me. I struggle. I've asked for people to call me out. We've had Dan come on who agreed with me. We have Ojo come on who's agreed with me. King came on, of course, and said he feels it's a 6 out of 10, but I think we had a really good back and forth about why that is. So tell me where your head's at, mate.
Yeah. If you want to say uh, a month ago, I mean, we can take it in two parts. The first part is that Arsenal. The positive part is Arsenal finished the business early. They did their homework. They finished. They scouted the players that they wanted. They talked to the representatives. They did everything they needed to do. Something Arsenal fans were criticizing the Arsenal hierarchy for a while. That Edu is that after failing miserably in the winter transfer window, and yeah, basically that's over with. We got the players that we wanted. I like that. I love that. Then there is the time where you can problem solve. I mean, part of Edu's job is to problem solve on the fly, and he didn't do that yesterday because, as I said last time I was on with you, uh, we anybody can see the problems that we have. Don't let this opportunity slip by. Get a person on loan that can an extra body that's available, that's helpful. If not, splash the cash because I'm sure that they Arteta and Edu have a book or a scouting department that they know the player that I told you they have an idea of the player that they want.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, so get a person that helps us.
What if they
And the
aren't
player
there though? I have to ask the question. Like the first question is obviously me asking you who. The second part is if what some people say is obviously, well, the club, have a list of players. They've got a scouting department. They've got analysts. All of these guys. They should be able to find someone. But what genuinely, if there isn't a quality option available, why should we go back to our old ways and panic? Like Liverpool have a bit with Arthur, and like Chelsea have a bit with Zakaria. Why should we do that and lock ourselves in potentially to a bad deal?
Not necessarily a bad deal, Tom. There's the magical words of the a loan. We can do that for an extra body. We don't clean loan. We don't no buy option. No extra jazzy words that we can add to the contract. Just give us a clean loan till January or till the end of the year. And by the way, Tom, if you noticed, this is the same cycle that's repeating itself. We did this with January. I always go back to January. I don't understand the logic or the thinking behind letting go of Chambers, letting go of Maitland-Niles, letting go to Maitland-Niles to Roma. Ironically,
Yeah.
now it's Maitland-Niles to Southampton. Yeah. So it's the same pattern, the same people that are helming this. Arteta is excused. As I say, I agree with you. He has nothing to do with it. He came in the press conference. He did a bit of was the Bournemouth manager that got sacked, but uh, the was the Bournemouth manager.
Scott Parker.
Yeah, he did a bit.
Scott Parker.
Yeah, he did a bit of that in a way of like trying to goad Edu on the hierarchy to spend.
And he got sacked.
Yeah, and he got sacked. Yeah. But Arteta is of course more aligned with the hierarchy and the Cronkies and all of that. But Tom, what's the stronghold here? What are people you're not agreeing with people here? What's the problem? What's the issue? What's the idea that you're battling with other fans?
I think one of them is how poorly some are rating the window. You know, like I think a 6 out of 10 is harsh. I think it's harsh considering what the players that we have brought in. You know, Gabriel Jesus is a world-class striker we have longed for. Zinchenko looks like a world-class addition and tactically perfect to what we're trying to do on the left-hand side. We don't know what Vieira is going to bring to us, but the club think he's good enough that they are willing to spend £34 million on a player in a window where they aren't willing to overpay on quality and they only want quality. And this is someone that's got, you know, more than 20 goal contributions last season for Porto at the age of 21. You know, and he plays in a variable positions, including right wing, which is one people think we haven't signed anyone in, but we have because Vieira can play there. So I'm struggling with the negativity and the calling out of or saying that Edu should be sacked. I don't think that anyone should be sacked based upon this window. You know, I think there should be, if anything, praise for what we have done. I'm struggling with those that think that X, Y, Z should go for whatever reason. That's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah. Do you think Cedric, Ronnerson, Pablo Mari, and Willian have anything to do with that?
Probably, but I do think that Raul Sanyehi was still here when we made all of those signings, and he had part to do with it. So I'd kind of, after Raul Sanyehi left, that's when I kind of judge Edu as kind of the lone fella in the technical director box, which is of course in the summer of 2021 onwards. So
yeah, Tom,
yeah,
I agree with you. But what right now, this is post 2018. The Cronkies have the full ownership. What is there a problem with the money?
I've seen people say that we're not backed. Do you think we're not backed?
I mean, we had a argument. I'm not an argument, a conversation of
a debate.
A debate. Yeah. I don't know why I stick to arguments. So that's such a
social media, mate. That's what we do.
Yeah. So basically, we're having a conversation. You said that let's bring up the topic of finances. Me, I'm not accounted. You're not accounted. So we brought some person.
Mike,
Swiss Ramble. Mike was there. It helped me a lot in understanding the finances behind Arsenal. But if the Cronkies have the money and the backing, I don't understand why are they not splashing? Maybe they didn't identify the right player. Who's the right player? We don't know. The mystery winger or the mystery midfielder. All this is, and Arsenal are very secretive towards the journalists, so nobody knows exactly what we want. Is it the money? Is it the player? Is identifying the right idea of a player to come in? And by the way, with the Fabio Vieira topic, he is a player. I think they're giving him the training wheels, ideas of ways to play. I mean, there's the same issue that happened. Ironically, they're best friends to Martinelli.
Yeah.
There was a point where he was not playing that much, and people were saying, "What is Arteta having a problem with him? Is he not understanding the system? Does he doesn't like him?" Then all of a sudden, now look, Martinelli is playing as a starter, and he understands the system. He plays really well. I think so. Fabio Vieira and Lukanga are going through the training wheels of the stage in which they're not gonna get to play a lot until they understand what will happen with the style of play, the identity, and then they'll be able to play maybe next year on a more regular basis. So we'll see about that. But for me, it's just I wanted to pop in and say,
I appreciate the time. I appreciate your time, mate. I will catch up with you on a future one, I'm sure. But thank you for coming on, bro.
Thank you very much, man.
See you later. I realised I said at the start of the show that I never used the word bro, and I feel like I've now said it 4 times on one show, which is just very me contradicting myself. The last thing that I want to point out to people that in the chat box have said that Arsenal aren't backed like City, like Chelsea, what I would encourage you to do is go and look at the net spend of Arsenal of the last 4 years from 2018 onwards. I would encourage you to really go and look at that net spend, because that's the reason why we aren't spending as much as those guys. Man City have signed Haaland, and they've signed Calvin Phillips, and they've signed Sergio Gomez, and they've made a profit this window. They've made a profit on players. So it's not about we're not backed like City. We're spending more than City when you consider the fact that they're able to sell so well, because we've had, with respect, dross that we've had to get rid of because of previous regimes' poor recruitment. You look at Chelsea, how much they've spent. I think they've had a record window, this summer? I'll have a quick look. I know I've got to stop this show in a second, but because I'm starting work at 9 today. But if I go to Chelsea's all transfer history, so this summer they've spent 251 million. I think that's something like a record. They've still made 50 million quid back, so you can call that 200 million pounds worth of spend. In 21-22, they spent 106 million. Guess what? They made a profit that summer because they sold 107 million pounds worth of players. If you go back to 2021, they had another big summer, 222 million pounds spent, still made 50 million quid in regards to players they managed to sell on. If you go back to 19-20, they spent 40 million during that summer that they had that ban because they had the option on Kovacic. But in that summer, they made 141 million pounds. You know, they've made 100 million quid's worth of profit. You go back to 2018-19, they spent 187 million, but they made 74 million pounds. So whilst they're not necessarily making the profits like Manchester City certainly are starting to, they're not spending the same as Arsenal. Whereas you look at Arsenal over the last few years, spent 118 million this summer, sold 20 million. Last summer, 150 million spent, 28 million pounds made. Summer before that, 77 million pounds spent, 17 million pounds made. Summer before that, in 2019, 144 million pounds spent, 48 million pounds made. 18-19, spent 72 million pounds, made 8 million pounds. Arsenal are backed, guys. Don't get me wrong. There's no argument to turn around and say that Arsenal aren't being backed by the owners. We're spending money. We're just not making it. And that's why the argument in comparison to the likes of City and Chelsea just doesn't stack up. Does not stack up. We are backed, arguably more at times than Chelsea and City. But because of such poor recruitment decisions of the past, in the past decade, we just aren't able to react and sell as well. That's what we need to get to. And that's why we can't panic buy. That's what we can't go and splurge, 50 odd million quid on a player that's worth 30 million. Because we can't do that anymore. Because if we continue to do what we've done in the past, we will continue to struggle to invest how we need to. Anyway, we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I'm now going to go and start work. I am also hopefully going to see a lot of you live this evening. I hope if you are coming along to our live show in North London tonight, come along and say hello, come and have a beer, come and listen to our fantastic guests, James Bench, FK, Harry Simiu, Sophie Nicolau, and of course, Mike from the Gooners Pod, all along this evening to try and help support Gooners v Cancer at the Ridley Road Social Club in North London. Go and get details. Link in the description. There are tickets still available tonight. It's only £5, and that is a donation towards the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So come and have a gander. Come and have a chat. Come and have a listen about Arsenal. And I hope you enjoy it if you indeed do. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed it. Go and have a check of our Football Prizes competition as well. Signed Zinchenko and Tony Adams shirts, I believe, are available. And, of course, the chance to win a ticket to go and watch Arsenal against PSV in the Europa League. Through a hospitality ticket. Enjoy. Have a fantastic day. I will see you very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.